Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom and Influence podcast here at Cornerstone University. I am delighted to have a dear friend of mine in the university. She serves as the CEO and president of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute in Washington, D.C., has a wonderful career in the corporate world and academia, and just a dear friend. Please join me in welcoming Mary Ann Gomez Orta. Mary Ann, thank you for being a part of our podcast.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. I thought it'd be great if you could introduce the Institute to our listeners. It's in Washington, D.C., but you really have a national footprint, a national presence. And it'd be wonderful if you could just tell us about the Institute, how it began, what it's doing now, and the great influence it has.
Okay, well, good. Thank you. Well, the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute was founded in 2003 by members of Congress and some key corporate executives who basically got together and said, you know what, we need to really get more Latinos into public service and get that pipeline working on the Hill, in the White House, in every aspects of federal government, mainly here in Washington, but also just to teach them more about public service. And if they end up not running for office, they would appreciate at least diversity of thought, different perspectives, the bipartisanship, and be able to be engaged. Civic engagement at the local level is really, really important. That's where it all starts. And so through the years, we've been blessed with wonderful corporate board members, different members of Congress from both sides of the aisle. Again, a big focus of ours, our vision is advancing the Hispanic community's diversity of thought. And so everything we do, President Moreno-Riaño is based on the diversity of thought and the bipartisanship. So we have a variety of programs. So for the students at Cornerstone and for others who have some students that you may work with or in the family, we have our flagship program called the Global Leaders Internship program. The interns spend 2 months on the Hill and then 2 months in a corporate office. Our sponsors cover the housing, the transportation to and from, a subway card. We get a little bit support on some other ways for the students. We also have a summer law fellows program. We have a public service leadership fellowship named after our founder, Lincoln Diaz-Balart, who we lost last year. And then happy to say that at the end of last year, we kicked off a program that I had actually started as my project during the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program last year, and it's called Chillie Level Up, and it's for young professionals ages 23 to 29. And it's an opportunity, after you get that first job, or maybe you're trying to get to the next job, or you're trying to figure out how to go to law school, back and forth. It's, we have such great talent in that age, right? And sometimes they just need a little bit more support, kind of maybe soften up some rough, soft skills. And so this is an opportunity to say, okay, here's where you take it to the next level. Because me personally, and a lot of us at the staff and the board, we really want to see all students, but in particular Hispanic American students, to get to their success a lot shorter than we did. And anything that we can help along the way. So we've had programs across the country as well. And we've had programs at different universities. So look forward to going to Cornerstone University. But that's basically what we do. And because we are in Washington, again, the focus is really on the bipartisanship and learning how to work with each other.
Mary Ann, thank you. And I should mention to our listeners that Mary Ann has been on our campus before. She was one of the very first Wisdom Conversation keynote participants. Thank you, Mary Ann, for that. And now you serve on our President's Industry Council, and you'll be back on our campus this spring. So just thank you for your service to our university already and all you've done to help us. I want to make sure our listeners know that, Mary Ann.
Oh, no, of course. I enjoyed being on the campus, and I also had an opportunity to speak to some students in a class. So that was always fun. So I look forward to, hopefully we can do that again when I'm there back in the spring.
Absolutely. Mary Ann, I want to ask you, it's fascinating what you just shared. I want to share with you a conversation I had several weeks ago with some Hispanic pastors here in Grand Rapids and their perspective on education. Because when you speak about the incredible talent in the Hispanic community and the potential there and all the great work you're doing, One of the things that these pastors shared with me, and they pastor some significant churches and are part of a very large denominational group here in West Michigan and beyond. But one of the things they said to me was that the majority of Hispanic pastors here in West Michigan, and I imagine in many other places as well, really do not encourage their young people to go to college. That the majority are encouraging their young people to go right into the workforce, right? Graduate from high school and just bypass college and don't go there at all. It reminded me of some of my own family. I'm a first-generation student who went to college. But I also remember some in my family telling me the same exact thing: don't go to college, right? And just share with me your experience as you work at the Institute and throughout the country. What are you seeing? Is that something that's an anomaly, or are you seeing more of that, or that threat throughout the Hispanic community, a hesitancy to go to college for adults to encourage young people to go? What do you think?
So there's a couple things there. So one is, in general, in the world of academia, right? You're in it, and so you've seen that there's also a lot more women of all backgrounds going and attending universities more than the young men. Even like in our internship program, we're always recruiting more young men because they don't always apply for the program. And so the ones that are in the university system are usually like super focused. They've got to finish in a certain number of years because their scholarship is only for 4 years, or they're balancing working, going to school, maybe trying to get a loan, but trying to avoid getting a big loan. So there's a lot more pressure and a lot more things to navigate for any student. Nowadays, when I graduated and I was in school, I had the scholarships, but you seem like to get a lot more money, or at least I did get a lot more scholarships the first couple of years, and then after that, the scholarships weren't as high. So that, I think, has gotten a little harder. I grew up in a farm worker camp. I'm the first one in my family of all the cousins, because I'm on the older side of the cousins, to go to school. But I also have cousins that would say, things like, "Oh, el papelito, that paper, you don't need it to succeed. You don't need that." And so they've also have children that maybe haven't been promoted or encouraged to go to college. Maybe they go to a community college, do a certificate program, do something at the community college, and then maybe get into trades or something else. The interesting thing about what's happening in the community right now that I'm seeing, and obviously the pastors, they know, right, because they're there, is that the university system as a whole, and what people hear more than anything else, is that it's expensive. And that it takes a long time to get your certification or your degree. And in that time, you could have been earning an income instead. And so it makes it it's just a little harder, right? Because there's certain voices that are getting to our kids a lot sooner and saying, hey, you need to work. And the hard part is that to a lot of our first, parents, immigrants, their mindset is to work hard and, get out of that, survival mode and start producing in all facets for the family and the community. And so we come, I think, generally from a very entrepreneurship, very utilitarian, very pragmatic kind of upbringings. Obviously, the majority of the families are Christian, Catholic people of faith. And so that is never a question. But it's getting a little more challenging for the voices that want to promote higher education to get through because of things that are happening that are so expensive at universities. Now, we're promoting university degrees, and we're promoting the public service side, the civic engagement with students in particular to see that, there's an opportunity for them, and like I mentioned earlier, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't realize that there's a lot of students for whom their opportunity is not to go to college right now, or they don't understand those different opportunities. And, I have tios and tias too that would say, ay, hija, ¿para qué vas? Why are you going to college? I've got this friend at this factory and they can help you get a job. So we just have to, I think we have to do a better job of communicating the different opportunities and giving the students the opportunities to hear those opportunities and to make a decision for themselves.
Yeah, I remember. Thank you. I remember when I was a senior in high school and wanted to go to college. My father had very serious conversations with me about don't do it, don't go. Stay here with me. We'll do this, we'll do that. And then my mom will pull me aside and she'd say, "You better go. You have to go." Yeah. And I had sort of this split personality home when my father was
totally
very strong. You don't go, stay in construction. We'll do all this construction work together and do this. My mom's saying, "You have to go, you have to go, you have to go." And realizing that my mom's family, I had several had gone to college, her brothers and sisters. My father was not the case. So you had this, what I call this intergenerational problem in some ways, right? Yeah. That just propagates itself. And I guess one of the things I want to ask you about, it's something that so often I don't hear a lot about. I hear a lot about the intergenerational transmission of poverty and the problem with that. But I see the intergenerational transmission of no education as a major, major problem for our country, for the Hispanic community, for other communities, where parents and family who don't value it because they didn't go to it, then tell their kids the same thing. And I'm concerned about what that will do to our country, to the democracy, to our republic, to the diversity of thought you've mentioned before, when you have so many who are saying no. So give us your thoughts on that perspective.
Yeah, no, great point is that, and I agree with you that I tell people, for example, we'll have different conversations about the number of Hispanic Americans in this country, right? And yes, there's a lot of us, and there will be more based on the census projections. The difference is that, one, we're not all registered to vote, and the other is that we're not all educated. We're not even all educated with an AA degree, right? Let alone a bachelor's degree, and then a master's, and then a doctorate. I mean, I'm speaking to one of the few PhDs, the Latinos. I mean, that's also rare. And so it is a big, it's one of those things that I think people don't really talk about. And obviously right now there's a lot of different things going on in the news. But it is important in that we need to make sure that our children are educated, because if they're not, we're going to be on the reverse. What we're now creating then is by not encouraging them to go forward and get an education where they can improve their families' well-being and economic situation and the community, and they can be engaged and they can be the voice for others when needed. When we don't have that, which is usually what comes when someone is educated, we're going to go back to being a lot of us being even more poor than we are now. And it's going to get harder because now we're also incorporating into that layer the technology advances, right? And we're also competing, you add the layer of the global economy. It isn't anymore where we're competing with the student in the classroom and our buddy in the classroom. We're competing with students across the globe we've never met. We're competing with countries and industries, companies and organizations across the globe. And so the Latino community here in the United States really needs to up their game to make sure that we're ready and that our kids are ready. And so it is a little challenging. And I think part of it is that, some of these conversations maybe aren't like the funnest, coolest conversations to follow on social media, so we're not on those algorithms, we got to figure out how to get into them though. But I think that along the lines of what the pastors were saying, and sharing, I'm sure that also comes up is that the other thing that I think that we need to think about too, not just at Cornerstone University, at other universities and in our communities, is we really need to pay more attention to our young men. I'm concerned that our young men are not getting the love that we once gave them, or the kind of love and attention that they need to really step up and feel seen and heard and to contribute at the level that they can. Young men and women socialize differently. We all learned that during COVID, how they navigated high school or college. It's just different. It's just different. And so we really need to encourage our young, students in high school and college. And I encourage also the pastors to invite, the university representatives, different people to the church and the place of worship to have different conversations. And maybe in a nice, safe place is have that opportunity to just share and learn.
No, thank you. I'm so concerned. I have colleagues who said this to me that, and I'm so grateful you brought up the technology dilemma now, because I do think we're at a very critical point here in our country for the Hispanic community and for just, the working class and blue collar families. I think that if they get left behind, they will never catch up. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, right, to do it with technology and what the technology is doing to differentiate now between those who have and those who have not. It's just a reality. And I don't see that train slowing down anytime soon. So, the importance thus of universities and the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute and other groups like this to try to get into these communities of our friends and families and neighbors and people and get them help. But my deeper concern is that it all starts in the home, right? It all starts with the family and this bent toward for or against, right? Now my father's thrilled. By the way,
of course.
He's thrilled that I went to school.
Doctor
right?
En la casa, en la familia, of course.
Right.
Presidente,
It's exactly right. He's thrilled. He's 90 years old. Every time someone goes to his home to fix something, he has a picture of me. He shows it to them, and he's my president. He's all these wonderful things.
Yeah, he's your publicist. He's your PR guy. Yeah, that's awesome. Right. I love it.
So it's amazing, but the dilemma of being left behind and how do we get into the homes, into the families, right? To change that, and how do universities become more accessible, more friendly, right? More approachable, maybe, so that stigma of the university, whether it's the cost or the lack of access, or that's for you, not for me, right? It's for other people, but not for me, right?
One of the things that, I attended a small private university, the University of the Pacific, founded by Methodists. And interesting enough, the university is smack in the middle between two major streets in Stockton, where I grew up. But it was always like, oh, wow, like that university, like we would never go there because it was a private university. We could never afford it. It was always, you would go through the university. My dad would literally drive through to get to the other street. Like it was just the shortcut. It was never like we were actually going to attend, or we knew anybody there. But the university started a program. They started a scholarship specifically for children, students of the county. And they made that effort to try to get more students of diverse backgrounds, not just Hispanic, but again, those of us that maybe couldn't afford different opportunities, right? And they gave us the different scholarships, the different opportunities for different sponsorships. Different people were, sponsoring certain students or first generation. And over the years, the program has grown. And now there's a lot more people from the community, more blue collar workers as well, going and attending the university because of the very intentional program to reach and among the community itself. I mean, we had people coming in from Hawaii and across the globe and paying, of course, full ride tuition, which I know universities also need. But there's got to be a way to connect with the community to say, this is also your campus. This is, we're going to have community events here. We need to, have an opportunity to invite the pastors to the campus, right? There's just different ways to do it, but it just needs to have a lot of intentionality behind it.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I've reached out to the pastors, to a large number. I've been meeting with them, but it's slow going. There's lots of perceptions, misperceptions, not needed, well, whatever it may be. But you're right. We have to be deliberate. We have to be intentional, and we have to be involved there and bring real value to the community. I think it's one of the biggest challenges. I'd like for you to comment on this, please. So often we in universities, academics in universities, believe that what we offer is just gold, 24 karat gold, right? It may not be that in real life, but we think it is. And I think what's happening now in the market, and it's been happening now for quite some time, but maybe in a more intense way, is that the market is saying what you are offering really is not as valuable as you think it is. And it is making us having to, and it's a good thing, I think, rethink, are our programs really relevant? Are they market relevant? Are they really going to help people? Are they really going to provide value to them? And that market adjustment is really, really, really important. Just a couple of weeks ago at Davos, the Palantir CEO spoke for 30 minutes on AI. And at the end, they asked him about AI and universities. And he said, look, in the very, very near future, what artificial intelligence is going to do is it's going to force universities to really come to terms with whether what they offer is valuable or not for the market, for people. So that's one of the challenges we're facing all the time. I mean, we're thinking about it here at Cornerstone, but let's ensure that whatever we offer in our programs, certificates, whatever it is, it adds real value to the student right here, right now.
Right. And I think so yes, it is happening. And I think that what really amplified that more was COVID, right? When you didn't have to go or you couldn't go to the classroom, and some universities are trying to balance, what class needs to be in person, which one needs to be okay during, a Zoom meeting or what have you. And, there's also some classes that there is no other way you're going to learn except by being in person. You need to have the chemistry lab work. You need to do some kind of work together. It doesn't, even if it's in the trades, you still have to show up in person. So I think that kind of, maybe just amplified, and to your, point, really challenged the universities to say, okay, now we really need to look at the added value and see, okay, is this a value? Is this important? Is this what the market is asking? Is this what the students, and there's a balance. And as I think what's happening too is that the universities need to also, the leadership also needs to ask in the community, well, the major employers, the middle-sized employers, what kind of talent do you need? Who are you hiring? How can we partner? Okay, great. We have this great degree. We have this great program. Maybe it's not serving the student body because it's not serving the community. There's a lot less people also moving away to school. There's more students staying around the family to go to college because it's less expensive. And unfortunately, like many of us, we had to also take care of mom and dad, or I helped raise my little brother. So I went away, but not that far away, right? So if we're looking at students in our area and we know they're not going to go far for an education because they need to be close to their family, then what do they need to thrive? And what kind of jobs are they going to be able to get when they graduate? For example, there's been a lot about a 4-year program. Why is it 4 years? Some kids can do it in 3, right? So, some kids do a community college program for 1.5 years and they fast track and they're done in 3 years. So, it's just one of those, again, opportunities to really see how do we serve our individual communities and a little more focus on our communities versus being the university that everybody from other places is going to come to, because a lot of students are not going away. So, for example, in our internship program, most of the students that come to our program come from a university not that far from where they grew up. We don't have a lot of students that are from Southern California, but they happen to be studying in Oklahoma. You don't have a lot like that. The gems that are different like that, or like the unicorns that are different, are the ones that maybe on an athletic scholarship, right? Where only certain universities offer that blend of I love hockey and I like this program, right? But the majority of students now are living closer to home or are living at home and are going to an academic program within that space where it's less expensive and they're also helping their family.
Mary Ann, one of the things that I very much appreciated when I first encountered the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute and saw its mission were the words diversity of thought, right? There's a tendency nowadays to paint the Hispanic community in a very monolithic way, and it's not that at all. And I really appreciate even the founding of the Institute, bipartisan, right? And even the events I've attended there, and thank you for those kind of invitations, I see that in the attendees themselves. So would you talk with our listeners about the importance of that, the diversity of thought, and how we approach that today, especially as you know, in the culture where there's been DEI for many years. Now there's a backlash against DEI. And how do we really understand that in a thoughtful way, in a good way, not a destructive way, right? So maybe you can talk to us, share with us how you've done that from the founding of the Institute and as you've led it, maintaining that diversity of thought in a very real, robust way, not virtue signaling, but in a way that's meaningful.
And so, we mentioned this a little bit before, but the importance from the founders. The founders were 3 Cuban American Republican members from South Florida. 2 of them were born in Cuba. And so they knew from the very beginning that what they really needed to have here and what they didn't see was the true bipartisanship, not just in the description of the organization, but in the actions and in the programs. And being Republican, they said, oh, no, we need to have our Democrat friends. And on top of that, we also need to have people at the table who aren't Hispanic, because it can't just be us talking to us, right? That's not going to help. That's not going to help our future talent if we're only just talking amongst ourselves. With that really has been a focus in everything that we do. We literally will go through and make sure that we have people from both sides of the aisle, organizations from both sides of the aisle. I'm a natural connector. I love it. I love connecting people who haven't met each other, especially anybody who is supportive of encouraging and supporting students of all backgrounds. Obviously, our organization's a little more focused on the Hispanic students, but we do help a lot of different students. And so we want to make sure that in anything that we do, we have the bipartisanship, one, and then the other is the diversity of thought is really, really important. You can see now that even in one party, there's diversity of thought, right? There's that aspect of you need to understand it. What we're getting into now, and I kind of joked around about it earlier, about, if your social media algorithms are just following the same kind of people with the same kind of conversations, you're not giving yourself that opportunity to really learn and get different perspectives. And the way that we grow is to get those different perspectives. Let me pivot a little bit and share, from a Christian standpoint, right? How many times in those different conversations did Jesus want to go and talk to a different group? And the people with him would say, oh, we can't talk to them. We've never talked to them. The last time we talked to them, they stoned us, they this, right? And he says, no, we're going to go talk to them. We're going to go and have a simple, open, curious, civil conversation, right? We're going to show up with peace, right? Instead of showing up with the anger from back when. And so I think we need to do a little more of that. We need to recognize that not everybody thinks the same way, not even in our own family. Look, I grew up in a farm worker camp in Central California. My husband was born in Cuba. I never met a Cuban until I moved from California to Washington, D.C. So, it's one of those things where you have to be, I think really what's going to happen is the people who are curious and take the time to have a conversation just to learn, not to judge and not to force your opinion on somebody else, but just to have a conversation to learn. that is the group that is going to excel.
Yeah, you bring such a beautiful point about Jesus in the conversations, right? And so many times you see the authorities at that time condemning him because he was talking to people that you should not be talking with, or having dinner with people you shouldn't be having dinner with. And he was coming with peace, and he was coming with truth, and he was coming with discernment to help. And that's a wonderful point. I've always appreciated about the Institute and how you and your team really live it out, because it's absolutely critical. I remember even in South America, we moved here 45 years ago, but just the diversity of thought in South America. It's so easy for people to think it's a monolithic continent.
Right.
It is not at all.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's not at all. Yeah. And all the different countries and how they work together, and how, just to navigate it all. Right. And even though we speak Spanish, it's different Spanish, different accents. It's just very different. Some people like spicy food. Some people don't. So it really is different.
It really is incredible. Something else I've noticed, I think it's important that I want to get your perspective and comment for our listeners, that I've seen, not just being a member of the Hispanic community in this country now for many, many years, but I see it outside of the Hispanic community as well. And I want to get your perspective on this. I saw it particularly in an event several months back, where a significant number of award winners, when they would speak about receiving the award, they would also convey how frustrated or angry they were with society, with the country, right? And they saw themselves almost as victims of the broader context, the broader society. Then the other half of the award winners saw themselves not as that at all, but said, look, everyone goes through difficulties and trials and sufferings, overcome it. Don't let that make you be this, right? It's not just in the Hispanic community. I'm getting a sense that even throughout our own country, it's almost like those who see themselves as the victim versus the oppressor, versus those who say, you know what, I'm not going to let that defeat me. I have the ability the agency to, if I can use that word, to grow, to buy, to be an entrepreneur, to overcome, on and on. So maybe if you, in all your travels and the work that you do with students, with interns and members of Congress, talk to us about those two polar opposites, because I see it in a lot of people today, young people and older people, these forces of oppressor versus victim. But I also see how that defeats us, and the defeatist mentality it gives to us.
Yeah, I think that, from different communities, and obviously from growing up the way that I did, right? So my parents had a third grade education. Mom finished third grade in Texas and then quickly was picking cotton. My dad finished third grade in Mexico, came to the U.S. in a guest worker program. They met working in the fields in Northern California, right? So from the very beginning, we were poor. We were poor from a economic perspective, and there were just certain things that we really couldn't afford to do. So that it was very much a survival mentality. Like we really just gotta, bootstrap. We gotta do things. And very resourceful. I think that my parents, for example, in that generation, are very resourceful, utilitarian. We can do it. I mean, to grow up in Mexico and go to another country, or to grow up anywhere and leave your country for an opportunity for yourself and for your family, or your future family even, right, is a big deal. And it was a situation that my parents were in. And what happens is there are people, like in this fork in the road, there are some people who have the agency, who are empowered, who figure out, okay, I'm in this situation, but I'm working hard. I know it's minimum wage, but I'm going to get another job. I'm going to figure this out. And they take that path that, I'm empowering myself and I have my agency and I'm going to keep going. And then there's another path, which unfortunately, to be honest with you, this other fork in the road is a bigger fork. It's a bigger road. There's more people on it. Is the one that's like, we're all just going to hang out together and misery loves company. We're going at a slower pace. I don't like what so-and-so said to me. I don't like how they looked at me. I don't like how they said this. And it counters your progress. Because if you're telling yourself, I'm not going to do it, or I don't know how to do it, then guess what? You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. But if you're on that other side where I'm going to do this, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to get, and honestly, that takes more work, right? It takes a little more work. Some people are late bloomers. They finally get there. Others stay with the crowd and they don't really get there. And so I think that what's also been happening from not just in the U.S., but a global perspective is that we're also seeing different communities, different democracies, different, globes, countries, where the people are now saying, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being told what to do, being all these other detail, things that go on in their life. And they're now raising their hand and saying, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to speak up. And so you're starting to see people speak up. The challenge is that they speak up and then there's no other action. Because they've also haven't gotten the training, they don't have the education, they're not sure what else to do, right? And so it's important to really give some thought to the kind of society that we want, and then do your part. You don't have to be the president of a university. You don't have to be the CEO of a nonprofit. What is it that you can do to help? Is it help a student? Is it helping your community? If we each do a little something, that would help. But I find that, some of your observations as well, I'm also finding people that are already done with the game. They're ya se cansaron, they're tired, they don't want to be in the game anymore. And, life is pretty precious. And when you wake up and you get another day, I hope it's another day that you have an opportunity to do something small to be able to help somebody else.
Yeah, Mary, thank you. I want to ask you one final question. There's a lot of conversation, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, across the country now that higher education, the college degree really is no longer valuable, right? There are very different pathways to pursue. At the last President's Industry Council meeting, our very first one, I think we talked a little bit about that, some of the data on this. And we're seeing it, and consequently, it makes us be sharp and refined in what we're doing. But talk with our listeners about that, based on what you're seeing in Washington, D.C., the interns you're working with, members of Congress, nonprofit, corporate leaders. What's the mood out there about a college degree, college education? There's there certainly are the polls. But polls come and go, right? They shift, right? And so it's a temperature check, but may not always be the most reliable one. You look at enrollment declines, and they're real. Some of them may be rooted on that. Some of them may be rooted on demographic shifts. Some of them may be rooted on the very real problem you talked about before, that more younger men are just opting out, and that's a very real issue that's happening. Right. So just give us your sense on what you're seeing in this conversation about a college degree, valuable or not.
So the college degree is still very valuable. It's extremely valuable. And I would say that it's even more valuable and more important for our Hispanic students and families, because a college degree, like it or not, is basically the one ticket that is expected to get into certain positions, and not just certain positions, but to be promoted and to be leading organizations and to be bosses, managers, directors. And so if you don't have that entry ticket to get in, it's going to take you even longer to succeed. And it's going to take longer for your family to succeed. It's going to take longer for your community. If I hadn't gone to college with the student loans and the scholarships and whatever else, my dad bought a used car for, I think it was like $3,500, that he got money from two other brothers. Imagine, my dad and two other brothers put money together so that I could get a car so that I could go to the university. Okay? Because they knew that the next generation, which was me, needed a college education. And so now I'm the eldest of five. All five of us have a college education. We all went to different universities. But guess what? Now when mom and dad need something, they don't have to worry about it. We can provide. Now, we're not making a whole lot, but we're doing well. We're able to help ourselves. We're able to help mom and dad. We're able to help give, our nephews and nieces things that we didn't have, right? Things and opportunities and choices that we didn't even have, right? They were available to some people, and people will say, oh, well, it's just because they don't want to participate. No, I'm sorry. But you know what? I was a good tennis player in high school, but I couldn't afford to be on the team because who was going to pay mom and dad if they left the packing shed, right? How are you going to fill the gas tank to get Mary Ann to a tennis match? And who's going to buy Mary Ann's tennis clothes and tennis racket, right? So there are things that sometimes seem like they're there, but for some communities, like in how I grew up, they're not accessible. They're not that close to us. They actually make us even more frustrated because we can't get it. So a college education is going to change that for you. And I always say it changes for you and your family because your family is in it as well. And they're going to benefit from that education. And I'm concerned that we're not going to have enough Latinos students with a college education because what also happens, unfortunately, in a lot of major companies, they'll say, Gerson and Mary Ann, that's okay if you don't have a college degree. We got a job for you. Okay, great. There we go. And we're going to be the most hardworking people, right? But then when it comes to an opportunity for a promotion, well, you know what?
Yep.
You didn't have that piece of paper, and so over here has this degree and has maybe less years experience than you, but took, a management course. Oh, and they studied business. So they're going to get promoted. And little by little, then we're going to get left behind because we didn't have that education. So I would rather that we have the education and then we do whatever we want with it, right? But it's hard for me to explain, of course, because I have the education now. You can talk to my husband. My husband has a college degree as well, but he didn't go to college the same way I did to a four-year university right after high school because he was given different opportunities. But in his career, he figured out, darn, I need that college degree. And so he went to school at night. So I think the other piece that we need to figure out is how do we serve a university program? Maybe it's not in person the same way we've always done. Maybe it's in a different format, a different style. Again, does it have to be 4 years? Do we have to look at the curriculum that maybe is a little different? Maybe we need to add something to a freshman seminar. There's just different things that I think that we need to do to kind of be of better service to our families and our communities.
Yeah, that's so well put. We have to serve the people. We have to serve the student, and have that mindset. Not what I would call the traditional mindset. The idea or the notion that a student can take 4 years off and study ideas for 4 years and live in a college. That was for a long time ago for a certain group. Today's student, very, very different, and we have to go where they are. We have to go where they are.
We need to meet them where they are. We need to provide them in the format that is best for them. It's also been really hard in the public school education system, K through 12. We haven't had, unfortunately, we're one of those countries that doesn't put enough money into the public school education system. We don't pay our teachers what they really should be earning when you compare it to other countries. And so, there may be some opportunities to do something even at the high school level, right? To really introduce the students to what a college education can be and how to do that and really get them and motivate them, right? I think that there's a lot of opportunities that we can meet the students, not necessarily in the college age, but maybe meet them a little bit younger. And like I said, meet them at the church, meet them in different places because darn, trying to get through their little social media algorithm is a little more challenging these days.
We launched a partnership last year with Vertex Partnership Academies in the Bronx. So you may know the name Ian Rowe. Ian at the American Enterprise Institute, he's also the founder of these charter schools in New York City in the Bronx. And he heard of a partnership we set up with Project Hood in Chicago and said, boy, I really would like to set something up for my K-12 school in the Bronx. So I went to visit them and spent really a full day with them. I will tell you, I was absolutely bowled over with the maturity of those young men and women in that school and the incredible job they do there. So we developed a partnership with them. This was late fall last year. And in a couple of weeks, 8 of their students are coming here to Cornerstone to a STEM camp for our science, health, technology school. And so 8 of them are coming, high school students, and we think more will come eventually to become Cornerstone students. But that's what we did. We went there and we worked creatively with him and the team there and our own team to develop the right runway for this. Because if you don't do it, they won't come. They'll go somewhere else. Oh, they might even go anywhere.
Yeah, and there's got to be some way to merge a formal trades role with business or communication skills, something else, right? I mean, part of the challenge, for example, I remember years ago, we had a partnership with a corporate sponsor who specifically told us, we hire engineering students all the time, but man, they have no communications and business acumen. So they gave us a grant to get engineering students into a university business boot camp program, just to get them some business terminology and different things like that, right? And so we did that I think for like 3 summers, we didn't continue the program because the partnership kind of shifted and it was an opportunity for 3 years. But you really see, for example, we want to do more manufacturing in our country, yet we have people who don't want to do the work, right? Or the people who are doing the work are more seasoned now and they're trying to pass it on to the kids or somebody else and even in their own business. So there's got to be a way to learn how to, do the business side and do the welding, or we've got to be creative. We got to be creative to figure out again, where do we meet today's young people with what they need? And the other thing I want to add is we also need to show them some more respect. I see a lot of people who dismiss young people because they're young. Being the eldest of 5 and having to take care of mom and dad and speak, in English and interpret what I always say, I interpreted and translated the language and the culture. Those of us that have to do that, we grow up really fast.
Yes, you do.
and so we're not just kids, and so we know a lot. And so I think collectively today's high school students in particular, and maybe freshmen or so in universities, we don't give them that adult respect that they're trying to get because we keep them down as kids. We need to respect them at their level, and they're young adults and they're learning, and we need to give them that opportunity to shine the way that they're going to shine.
Mary Ann, I can go on for a long time. I want to say thank you to you for spending this time with us and all that you've shared and the wonderful work that you do and at the Institute in Washington, at the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute, and your friendship and partnership with Cornerstone University means a great deal to us, Mary Ann. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. And for everyone, have a blessed, wonderful 2026.
Wonderful. Likewise, Mary Ann. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon in April.
Thank you.